Good morning, ladies, and welcome to the Women's Coffee Club. We created this club to provide a safe space for women to share and inspire each other. So we're so grateful to have Kathleen McDermott this morning. Yes, she'll be presenting the inheritance you didn't ask for. So I'm so anxious to find out what that inheritance is. So Kathleen, with that, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your background and why you decided to choose this topic. Thank you again.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to see everyone this morning. And for me, Kathleen McDermott, I am the creator and founder of Your Life, Your Way, KM, Your Life, Your Way. I firmly believe that we should all be living life on our terms, being able to feel safe, being yourself, guilt-free. I am an adaptive and restorative yoga teacher, and I'm the host of the Your Life, Your Way podcast. I help women reduce stress and regulate their nervous system, and I help moms break cycles so they can free themselves and their children. And up here, Rini and I were talking, are my two little babies who are not that little anymore. They're going to be 30 this month. So that is my greatest joy in life, are my boys, Connor and Cameron. The whole thing chose me, and part of my history and why will come up as I'm speaking. To start, I would like to ask you, and there's a method to my madness in asking this. Our minds are not the only thing that go through our day. Our bodies do too. And I know you know that, but we want to look at it at a deeper level. So I'm going to ask you some questions. And I would like you to start with by almost imagining that you're stepping outside of yourself and you're hearing the questions, but you're almost like you're just the seer and the hearer. You're not going to feel them. You're just listening, because they can be triggers. So I certainly don't want to have anyone start to having any, and they're not that deep questions, but just surface things, which surface is where we all have our focus on a day-to-day basis. So the questions I would like to ask is, number one, how do you navigate? You don't have to answer out loud. Just think to yourself. How do you navigate through your day? Do you feel stress? Do you feel emotionally overwhelmed? Do you need, at any time, do you have the feeling that you need to defend your thoughts, your beliefs, even what you're wearing? Do you silence your voice and do you hold yourself back? Do you often find yourself saying, I'm fine, but inside you're not? Do you worry what other people will think about what you do, how you look, what you say, anything? And do you take things personally? Do you think you can't because it won't be perfect? Do you put everyone else before yourself? Are you heavy into people pleasing, feeling that you're not worthy or good enough? And even with all the support and everything that you give, you feel that that might not even be good enough. Does it feel like you're carrying the weight of the world on some days or many days? These questions, first of all, everyone here, if we had 1,000 women in the room, I can pretty much guarantee, be pretty confident that the 1,000 women in the room are going to have a lot of yeses to these questions. So first of all, you're not alone. You're absolutely not alone in whatever you're feeling with any of these questions. But the question to ask is why? If we had 1,000 or 100,000 women in the room and we ask these questions and everybody is feeling yes to many of these questions, why? That's the big question. And that's why I want you to step out of yourself and look at this for a bit, so that you're not having, so that your nervous system, your brain and your nervous system is not taking you into other thoughts that distract you and begin to stir up feelings. All of these questions are brought to you by something that you did not ask for. Now, when you think of inheritance, we all think tangibles, property, heirlooms, money. You think of inheritance. There's an inheritance that we don't ask for. And I tell you, if you're a mom, or even a grandma, we protect our children fiercely as mothers, fiercely, from injuries, from strangers. I mean, heck, if I could, even mine at going to be 30, if I could keep them in a bubble and keep them 100% safe, I would. But what we don't know, this is the key, what we don't know to protect them from is the inheritance. The inheritance is the unhealed wound and wounds from our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and back and back and back. And it sounds so weird to say this can be double-digit generations back, but it can. Science shows that not only does it pass through in behaviors, but it passes through genetically as well in our cells. So remember, this is a mind-body connection as we're going through this. And on top of all that, like that isn't enough. Dealing with wounds generation after generation. Society's rules, as I call them, society's rules on top of all that, I'm not surprised that we don't feel safe being ourselves. And if we try, there's a whole lot of guilt that goes with that, because either it's been ingrained in us or someone outside of us is doing their best to, no one can make us feel that way, but can cause us to make ourselves feel that way. So it doesn't seem like, it almost seems like, oh my God, what are the answers? It feels like we're overwhelmed, but it is absolutely 100% changeable, not to 100%, but to create a life that is yours without all the guilt, and it is a practice. So that's where all the tough questions come from. My personal experience, you asked why I chose this. I didn't. It chose me. I started teaching adaptive yoga years ago in 2006. And it really grew because I could intuitively see that something was happening, especially to the women in the class, engaging in creating their pose, not going to a class where everybody's doing the same pose and you're doing all at the same time and you come back to the next pose at the same time. It's a class where if you're in a pose and you are, whatever reason, want to be there, feel the need to be there, you stay there and you rejoin everyone when you're ready. You're in your pose. You're not in that picture, so-called perfect pose that you see in videos and magazines. And I'm not. That's a beautiful practice. And if that's what you practice, please love it, enjoy it, and eat it up. But not everyone feels comfortable practicing a traditional yoga class. So I was teaching this and realizing that there were things going on when we were creating and finding the individual woman's pose, because life started to come up, because she was finding so much about herself. In turn, it became and grew into coaching. Yes, I've done all the certifications, but it was a life experience, and that blossomed. And to be honest, the biggest for me was my own personal wake-up call that came from a separation and a divorce. And at that point in time, yes, I won't lie, I was going through the why me and the blame and feeling shame and just feeling that deep, dark pain. But I had sons and I felt very broken. And I had these two beautiful boys that saw and were watching everything. They were experiencing everything that they were going through with their parents. So I had a choice. I can continue in the blame game and the why me and being miserable and hurt and feeling broken, or I can turn it around. And that's when I said, if what I was teaching my clients worked for them, let's practice what I preach. And what changed it around? I had to stop and ask myself, what was my role in everything in my life? Not just the separation and divorce, but everything in my life. And the bigger part of that question was part two. Why? Why? I began to see that my behavior, do you ever have anybody say, oh, you're just like your mother, you're just like your father. Oh, and let me preface this. This is not about blaming, shaming, excuses, nothing. This is about the aha moment of, oh, I get it. So when I started to realize that, wow, I'm reacting to life in so many ways that my mother and father did. But behind that, I began to watch and think and say, okay, I know a lot about their upbringing. I know a lot about their wounds, but I never put the two and two together that I had been passed off their wounds. So in the meantime of my life, when I was having experiences, I was reacting to life via their pains, which were growing my pains. And it sounds daunting, but it's so freeing to understand how this process works. So I look at my parents and I think, wow, I'm really sad for you that y'all went through that. And now I understand you never intended to pass off pain to me. Your parents never intended to pass off pain to you, and so on. It's just a cycle. And if we don't know it, we don't know that it's happening. So once you begin to see it, you go, it's freeing. You go, wow, aha, I get it. So I know that I now have the power to change. And I know we don't like that C word, but we have the power to grow and change. Is it easy? That's first we think of, oh, it's easier said than done. It's hard. It's a hard road, but let me tell you, that first realization of, okay, I have some control here. I have some control of myself. I can take back control of myself. The understanding of their wounds carries forward as well. It carries to present and it carries forward in various ways. And one of the best ways that I liked was that it allows me to have not only more compassion for myself, but for my parents and grandparents and generations, ancestors, but it also helps me have compassion for people as I'm going out and about my day. Because if someone is giving off in a way and I'm thinking, okay, what are they carrying? What's been passed off to them? What do they not know they have? The weight that they're carrying. So, excuse me, it really does allow a lot of space for releasing and having compassion. Now, does that mean that you surround yourself with people that are struggling as well? That's up to you, because you're doing your growth. And we know that when we surround ourselves with certain energy that's maybe not on their road of growth, it can be hard. And I'm a firm believer that we can choose who we surround ourselves with. That's not a bad thing. We're all walking our own path, our own journey. But recognizing that this is something we're all going through. We all have our generational history, and we're all dealing with society. And society has that belief of how you should be, do, and live. I'm all for breaking so many of those rules. Every time I hear oh, you should wear your hair over 50, you shouldn't wear this over 40, I just want to scream. Sometimes I do. So that was my personal wake-up call. And I began to do the work and realized that this is a process that I can do. And that process, for me, and when working with clients, I have a 7-step process, because initially I had to recognize what was going on. I had to have that feeling and awareness that something wasn't right and that something had to change. Being aware of my behaviors and the behaviors in yourself that you've seen before, because as children, we soak up everything. And let's face it, our biggest teachers that we're with all the time is our family. Then questioning, this was big for me too, questioning my beliefs and values. I found a lot of my beliefs and values were my dad's. So I sat with those and worked with those and thought, some of those really do serve me. He taught me some really good things. But my dad also taught me how I didn't want to be. So it was a case of, okay, these he taught me well, and they serve me, and these are my values as well. These that are not my values, then it was about moving forward and saying, well, what are mine? My number one will always, is trust. My number one value is trust. That's the most important thing for me. I need to trust myself, and I really want to trust the people that I surround myself with. Thank you. So are those values really yours? And be curious. It's not that you are being and turning and going against your parents. You're just stepping into who you are. Think about it. Think of an onion and the layers of an onion. Every time through our life, we take on another level of conditioning, of behavior, of pain from others that's not ours. And that includes others out here in the world when we take that on. It's like we've covered in another layer. And buried under all that is who we really are. It's who you really are. So as you're shedding those layers and freeing yourself, then it's like, okay, this is my life. How do I want to live it? And that doesn't mean you're taking away from those before you or those currently in your circle of family or friends. It just means that now you're stepping into your life fully without any guilt. And it's a practice. Another step is exploring new perspectives and experiences through your own values. What are your dreams? What are your desires? But you have to be open-minded and you have to be curious. Our curiosity and our creativity can be stifled from the conditioning, from the inheritance. Choosing your own path. And that's scary. Let's face it. How often do you think, I want to do something, I want to do that, or, oh, that looks like, and you hear that little voice go, not safe, no, you hadn't better for whatever, and then the voice gives you a multitude of excuses as to why you can't do that, or why you shouldn't do that. Mind, body, our ego, we need our ego, we love our ego, we have to have it, it does serve us. But the fear that comes from that, our fear was meant to keep us safe ages ago from the lions, tigers, bears, wildlife. And today our fear is meant to help keep us safe from the things in the world. But our fear was never meant to control our life. And through all the conditioning, both generational and societal, we have developed so much fear mentally, physically. Remember, physically, the body is involved in everything. That we don't even realize that we might be stuck in fight or flight mode. There's fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and flop. But the most common are the fight or flight and freeze. My mom is a freezer. Boy, that's a wild thing to say. I can remember a couple of times through we've had some scary things, and she just, her body literally freezes. I have switched. So I used to be a mix of fight or flight, and now I'm more flight. But I now know that, so I work within that. But what happens is, if we don't understand our fear and how much it's controlling us, we can get stuck in fight or flight. Our nervous system gets dysregulated. It's in overdrive, which leads to inflammation. Stress leads to inflammation, which leads to illness and disease. We hear things, change your thoughts, change your life. To a point, affirmations, to a point. If we're only focusing, which for so many years, I thought the same thing. I had to change my thoughts. But my brain isn't the only thing that remembers. Your body remembers everything you've experienced throughout your life. And it's remembering things that your parents experienced and so on. So we have to heal both. So as we're going through in the process of breaking the cycles, it has to include healing both body and mind. Choosing your own path outside of that conditioning, continuing to heal the wounds, to break the society's rules. You have to have the courage and the self-awareness and the willingness to take risks. And fear can keep you from doing that. So in that process, I'll touch on a little bit, you can actually create a new relationship with fear. I've said to someone one time, you can actually, your fear can be a friend. Well, fear will never be my friend. I love when I hear these things because I know where they're coming from, whatever that person was carrying. Our fear can be something that you work with. Believe me, every time Renee and I were talking ahead of time, every time I go to Maryland, one of my sons lives in Maryland. Every time I'm getting ready to go there, I have to go through this whole process with my fear friend, because it's talking about, oh, the drive and the distance and the traffic, and you have to go over that freaking bridge. It is a little traumatic for me going over high bridges. But we have this conversation, fear and I. And it takes me a bit, but I can work through and calm myself with the tools that I use that are good for me to work through that fear and enjoy the trip. That comes to, well, number 6 is embracing your life. I'm going to come back to the number 1 step. Embracing yourself, embracing your life, continuing to challenge yourself, but to give yourself grace because, oh, I can tell you the review processes come up. Universe is always going to give you little opportunities to see how you're doing. So you're going to get little, I'm going to test you today and see how you react to this. And then I can tell you that does get easier. That gets a whole lot easier because right now, I'll be honest, I know when a trigger's coming. I recognize it now and I can feel it if it's coming. So it gives me an opportunity to say, okay, are you going to just process and respond or nothing at all? Or you're going to allow yourself to just go off? Okay, there's times I still go off, but it's just different. Usually if I'm going off, I'm venting to my mother or I'm venting to a friend. So it gets easier because you begin to recognize those old behaviors. You're relearning that those weren't yours. Some of them were survival skills, self-protection skills that you developed as a child. That leads me to step 1. We develop, remember, you are you today, whatever age you happen to be, but however many beautiful years you've blessed this earth with your presence. But you also still have the little girl you have the teenage girl you may even have, most likely, the 20-something or the 30-something you. If we only are looking to heal you in this present right now, without talking to them, you have to include them or the process cannot move forward because they've experienced so many things and they're carrying so many things. My little girl is there, my teenage girl is there, the woman who is married is still there. She and I still have some conversations. The healing process and talking and including them is very, very important. But to do all this, it's not about going back and reliving trauma. And trauma is your personal experience. So someone might say, well, my trauma was this or your trauma was that. It's your own personal experience. Just like divorce, you could put 100 women around it. We've all been divorced, but each one of us have had our own personal experience. And each one is personal and private and important. So in order to go through and do the work, it's not just about looking in the past and having to, we're not going to go and live there, but it's about just getting to know, getting to understand what your parents went through, what their parents went through. And I don't know a lot back in generations, but I do understand enough between my parents and my grandparents. I get it. I get it. And in order to do the process without losing yourself emotionally, mentally, even physically, spiritually, you have to have new skills, new tools, methods, resources. And that's one of the things that adaptive taught me the most into how to help women find theirs within that. Because with the adaptive, you're creating your pose. You're balancing maybe a tree pose. And I always say, it doesn't matter if it looks like a mighty oak or the shrub in your front yard. It is yours. It doesn't matter what anyone else is doing on their mat. That is their practice, not yours. It's the same with survival skills. And we don't want to survive anymore. We want to thrive. But we still have those fears that come up. We still have moments where life is just so loud. There is so much noise, both out and in, that we need to have things that we can reach for to help. And let's face it, some of you, your schedules are probably so full. And some days it's like, how do you get anything done? we've all been there. As women, we just do our best to try to do it all. And some people say, I literally don't have the time to squeeze in a restorative yoga practice or meditation or going, whatever it happens to be. But you can have new tools that you can reach for anywhere at any time. And that brings, and I'll give you an example, our 5 senses. We have them with us all the time: sight, hearing, taste, touch, smell. Got them all? All 5. For me, I'll give you an example. I always, in any room, in my truck, in my pocket, I have crystals. As far as I'm concerned, you can never have too many shoes or crystals. This is my go-to. So I use touch as my, when I feel it coming on, I will reach for a crystal. If I'm wearing one, I touch, or if I have in my pocket. Because once I take my awareness to that crystal and I start touching, I can feel the texture. Right now I have an amethyst, and it's very smooth in one part and it's rough in another part. And I can, now my attention is there. So whatever is happening, that trigger that I feel coming on, I'm using my touch sense to bring my awareness to this texture. How does it feel? Is it cool? Is it warm? Which brings me to my breath, which brings me to calm, clarity. I can think, how am I going to process this and react? Or am I going to respond? Or am I going to do nothing at all to whatever is happening? I've literally taken them to HOA board meetings and had them on the table. I'm so serious about my tool of touch to keep me in who I choose to be, which is as calm as I possibly can be, so that I can ebb and flow through the challenges that come up through the day, and the week, and the month, and the year. You can use sight, focusing on something, whatever sense you choose. Some are going to be easier when you're out and about shopping. Even if you're in the market and you have a shopping cart, your hands are on the cart, you can now take your attention to how that feels in your hands. So experiment with your senses. Which one is easiest for you and feels good for you? It feels right. It feels, it's a new way of feeling safe for you in that moment. That's one that I'd like you to take today. Another one that I would like you to take today is we get so busy and we're going through life. We don't focus on our nervous system like, oh, I need to love my nervous system today. But if you find, and you will, this is life. We live in a world with billions of people. Even just the weather can send us off, or a Mercury retrograde, computer's not working, pick something, can send us off. It can take time to get the nervous system to calm. So what can you do when you've gone over the edge and you feel you're in overdrive, you feel your breath is tightened, your heart might be racing, your palms might feel sweaty, however your body reacts? The first thing I would suggest that you do is come to your breath, because our vagus nerve, the vagus nerve is the main component of your parasympathetic nervous system, which is our calming side. The sympathetic is our rev up, parasympathetic is calm. So the quicker you can stimulate that vagus nerve, the quicker you can begin to calm your nervous system. And it runs through your entire breathing area. So if you take that focus to your breath coming from your belly and up through the base of the neck, down, press up and down, slow your breath, you're going to start massaging that vagus nerve. And let's do a little something else. In your ear, place your finger in your ear and in the hole, then go up to that first ledge. Everybody have that first ledge? So take the pad of your finger, lightly touch, and just gentle press, circle the skin, just lightly circle it. And you'll know if you're doing and you're stimulating because you'll start to feel saliva build in your mouth. And then circle the other way. You're now stimulating your vagus nerve. Anybody notice the saliva in their mouth? And then you just do the other side. So if you're driving, somebody's cut you off, stick your finger in your ear and start rubbing. It's an easy, using your breath and using this little motion. Somebody's going to say, what's the matter? Does your ear itch? Yes, it itches. And just keep circling. If you are in a really, 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 hopefully not, but if you're in a really, something has really come up that's just hurt you terribly, something cold to the side of your neck for 15 seconds and alternate sides. 15 seconds, 15 seconds. Do your best to try to bring yourself back from that really huge urge and fire of the stress and the nervous system just going off. Understanding the process that you can give yourself so much grace. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just, you've experienced the wounds of others. But I'll also say, if you're carrying those wounds and you've developed your own wounds, and you are a mom or a grandma, before you know, you have no responsibility, you don't know. Once you know, then you have a huge responsibility, because then you need to decide, are you going to pass those wounds forward to your children, grandchildren, and future generations? That's a huge, you're exchanging weight, but this weight you want to carry, because you're freeing yourself by breaking the cycles, and you're freeing your children. Now, my sons were they teens? Teens. They were still just finishing up high school. And so they were old enough. They'd learned a lot. And I can see things they've learned from me and things they've learned from their dad. Now, their dad and I'll give us both credit. We did break some cycles we didn't even know we broke. I could see it after I began to learn. But there are things, and my boys, God love them, they're patient with their mother to a certain extent. They're patient with their mother, and we have these conversations. We have deep, open conversations that you are carrying my wound, and I'm sorry, and that was never meant to be. And I now have a grandson. So it's even more important to keep my sons aware of the wounds, the weight that they're carrying that they were never meant to. I would much rather see you carry that weight of teaching forward than carrying the weight of back, because they never meant for you to carry it. They just didn't know. The whole process is an aha. It's a weight that you can begin to relieve right now. Right now, I hope you feel a little bit lighter and giving yourself some grace that you're not broken and none of this was your fault. You're not alone. We're all going through it. Sometimes I would like you to go to society's rules, please. And ask yourself, what role have you been playing in your life and why? That's, I think, everything that I had. I'm pausing and thinking. So I would like to open up and ask if anybody has any questions, aha moments.
Okay, let's just thank you so much, Kathleen, for that. It's really, we all go through all that, so I could relate definitely. Let's just open it up and let everyone share to see what their thoughts about this. Let's start with Suzanne. Oh no, I'm sorry. Victoria is there with her hands up. Go ahead, Victoria.
Well, I don't know if Suzanne wanted to talk first. It's okay.
Good.
It's
You're
okay.
good,
Go
Susan?
ahead.
Okay, already. Um, Fear. Um, I'm fearless, and I have no shame of saying that I'm fearless. I'm so fearless that sometimes when I take some decision and I act upon my decision, I crash and crash real hard. It doesn't happen often. Most of my life is more like it's okay. I go and live comfortably and I'm happy. I'm a happy person. Um, but this fear, I think it's when I learn how to swim. My mom, who had a fear of swimming, she couldn't go into the deep end, and she took a swimming lesson when she was in her mid 30s. So that means I was in age also to learn how to swim. So she wanted me not to have the fear of swimming, the fear of water. And I had the chance to have a grandpa who also, during the vacation, would teach me how to swim. But nevertheless, it happened that day. And that's what listening to your presentation today, which actually was excellent, I just want to mention. Um, it brought me back to that moment, which always come back to me when I have a huge decision to make. I'm on the border of the swimming pool and I cannot touch the bottom of that swimming pool. I'm 9 years old and or maybe even a little younger, but around there, definitely below 10. And the instructor tells me, you've got to jump. I'm here when you're going to go back up to the surface, when you jump. I'm here. You can grab the pole if you panic. So jump. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to jump. But fear stops, freeze, what you were mentioning. Freeze, you cannot act upon it. And then I had this thought, this crazy thought, knowing that the instructor was there with the pole to grab me or for me to grab the pole when I come up to the surface. I had this crazy thought saying, oh, oh well, I'm I'm scared, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And if I die, oh well. I mean, 9 years old, I'm thinking about death, but somehow and subconsciously, unconsciously, I'm thinking also that I have the safety net somehow. I said, oh well, if I die, oh well, and then I jump. So every time I've got this feeling of like, oh, I have a hard time being in ambivalence. That means not making the decision, procrastinate on things. So at one point in time, I faced myself. I'm like, you've got to make a decision now. And boom, I'm right back at the border of the swimming pool. Jump. You got a safety net. And sometimes I don't have safety nets. And I crash. But guess what? I'm back to the surface. I'm alive. I'm healthy. Today I'm not on a video. I caught a little eye sty. It's not very pretty, so that's why I'm not live on the video. But I'm alive. I feel good. I've got this wonderful practice that I'm developing. Plenty of projects in my head. This morning, somebody texts me, I want a gift certificate. Boom, here's a sale. So everything is okay. Everything is okay. Everything is taking place. Not as fast as I want it to be, but everything is taking place. I trust in God. The things that I cannot solve myself, oh well. I have this big project that I want to work with the Veterans of America. And yesterday I did all I could do in my power, overcoming the fear of like, it's not gonna work. Who do you think you are? And all that kind of things. You failed before in your previous endeavor, you're going to fail again. Fear, fear, fear. But then here I am. Here I am in front of that swimming pool and I'm jumping. And I did everything in my power that I could do. I talked to wonderful people at the VA and my application is in process. I have 30 days to wait and I'm confident that I'm going to get it. But to go back to the subject of this inheritance of being fearful, and I've been mentored also by the wonderful Bob Proctor, who told me many, 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 many times, be fearless or you'll never accomplish anything in your life. Anything of any uh, of good things because of fear. So whether I succeed in my project or whether I fail, it doesn't matter to me. I just jump. That was my take. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for the subject today.
You're welcome, and thank you for sharing that. I loved when you said about I didn't die, because I will often ask myself that. Well, did you die?
Yes.
So yeah,
Thank
good
you.
point.
Yes.
Thank you, Victoria. You have a lifeline always. Suzanne, go ahead.
Oh, I love this. This was great. In the last 6 years of my life, I've spent coming out of this hole that I had been in. Up until 2018, I was in the fawn. Okay, I'll do whatever you tell me. I just don't want to get in trouble. And now it's, and Sandra can tell you, we've had many, many, many conversations about this, but I'm now at the self-advocacy. And I'm now at the understanding of what came before me and the compassion of the stories that came before me. And I think one of my most beautiful things, because my girls saw me in the destruction of the marriage where I was emotionally abused and everything, and even when my mom was emotionally taking advantage of me. And I went to them last year, and this is maybe one of my most favorite things I did. I went up to them and I said to each one of them individually on a walk, how can I love and support you more? Because that, to me, that was something that was greatly missing. That was the inheritance that I could have kept and said, well, I didn't get it, so I'm not going to give it to them. No, I decided that's not what I was doing. I was going to do the exact opposite of what came to me and said, no, I'm going to empower my girls. I'm going to empower myself first, but I'm going to empower my girls. I'm going to tell them that they matter, that if they're not receiving what they need, to ask for it, to make sure that they tell me, Mom, I need some more love. I need some more support. Okay, I'll give it to them. And just going to that 5 senses, my favorite has been music all the time, music lyrics. Whatever mood I'm in, I can find a song that will perfectly be the panacea to whatever I need. And like Titanium, when I was going through a divorce, that's huge. As I'm going through some of the other things I'm going through, I have actually it's Mary Morrissey's husband's song "Follow the Dream," and how it can be hard and to keep going and keep going and keep going. So I tend to listen to that a lot, but music has definitely been my panacea for anything. I put on a song and I can completely change where I'm at.
That's
And thank
awesome.
you. This is awesome.
Thank you, Suzanne. How wonderful is that? Um, Jane, go ahead, Jane. Thank you,
Oh,
Suzanne.
it's so good to be here, and it's so good to see Kathleen. Hi. I just want to tell you, I love hearing as much as I can about the vagus nerve, because I feel like that has, well, you really contributed here when you talked about how the breathing and the muscles that we use for that are going to stimulate that vagus nerve. And the fingers in the ears. So I really like that. You're not broken. That message. We have wounds, but are we going to carry the wounds? We're going to pass those wounds on to others. And best of all, and thank you for this, that those wounds that you're carrying, they weren't meant for you. That's so powerful. So I am thrilled to see you. You are looking good, girl, or lady, woman, but we're all girls at heart, So yeah, it was a nice thing to have in the morning, and I enjoyed the diving board, Victoria. the feeling the fear and jumping, that's ultra special. And I had forgotten about something that I did when I was between 9 and 10, maybe closer to 10. And I would watch the bigger kids and some smaller ones, younger than me, in this pool, this public pool that I would go to as a kid. And that 10-foot dive, I wasn't a great swimmer. I was really good underwater, but somehow I couldn't translate on top of the water as well as I could underwater. But I studied enough people jumping off the 10-foot dives so that I decided it was my turn. And it's so funny. It's a time when, parents just dropped kids off that back then. It's like, spend the day. Here's a few dollars, have some lunch. Oh my God, it was such a learning experience. And so when I went off that 10-foot dive, and I can still feel that today. And so what I did, which the lifeguard called me on it, and I jumped near to the railings and the steps so that I wouldn't have far to go on top of the water. It's like, he called me right out. He said, if you don't know how to swim, you shouldn't be going off the high dive. And I was like, my 10-year-old, 9-year-old self was like, how dare you find me out? So that was a good one. So thank you for that. It's great to be here with everybody.
Thank you so much, Jane. And what I love about this conversation is each of us have our own toolbox, that Suzanne with your music, Victoria, when you have your fear, you go to something that you use to calm yourself down. So it's 7:52, so we don't if you need to leave at 8 o'clock, go ahead. We may go over a little bit, but just kind of be mindful of the time. I'm kind of the timekeeper here, but we will be a little bit over, and everyone will get a chance to share. So with that, Sandra, you're next.
Thank you. What a wonderful topic, and I'm so glad I was able to make it in today. It's been a busy time, but the summer maybe I can do it more. Kathleen, you were just going right through all of the work that I have done through my life over these decades to get to be me. And I can guarantee you that getting to be yourself is worth every bit of the work that you'll put in. Every bit of the work that you put in is worth it. So that today, regardless that I would have felt I had I didn't have to feel I had a dysfunctional family. I had a dysfunctional family. Some alcoholics around me, some strong-minded people, workaholics. And when you're going through it, you think, oh my God. And then there's that time when you're digging and rooting and peeling that onion you're talking about, that you have all of that, well, it's their fault. And then you get around to saying, yeah, well, now I'm an adult, so it doesn't matter whose fault it is. It's what are you going to do with it? And so that all those stages take time. And yes, we can have some instant results using our senses right that moment, and that's important. But allow ourselves the time to also say, life is a becoming. And I have been becoming and becoming and becoming, and I'm continuing becoming and will continue becoming as I cross the veil. So thank you very much for your sharing today.
Thank you, Sandra. Isn't that the truth? We're becoming. I love that. We are. It's a process. It's a process. There's no ending to it. It's a continuous work. So thank you for your share. Tamara, you're next.
Well, good morning. And I'm listening to all of the responses. Sorry, the baby's here. My dogs are barking. the responses, and I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, I have been doing this work my entire life too. And I'm like, and she's right, like you went through everything that I'm like just triggering everything in a good way, that oh my gosh, I have learned this. I have learned all of this. And I'm like, what is going on for these women out there that don't have this, that haven't been in this work? I remember before I did this work, I felt that hopelessness, that scared, not knowing what to do, breathing, not being able to jump in that water and go for that swim. And I've learned the tools to help know that I have that pole. I have that lifeguard, and I have the vagus nerve, the cold compress. You know, these women out there right now, I'm working with several women, and I'm like, what can I do to help them better? How can I help them more? How can I help my own children, like Sandra was saying, or Suzanne was saying? It's like, what kind of tools can I teach them so they can be strong, independent women that just love other people too? We need more compassion out there. Girlfriend, you got to get out there. You got sorry, this is so passionate for me, because I think, you know, people that have been abused around, you know, I grew up with an alcoholic. You guys know my story. And just having these tools for them, and even people that don't have that traumatic history, it's so helpful to help them to jump and get to that next level so they can be who they were meant to be. Anyway, so I just love you guys, and I got to go because the baby's here. So I got,
Thank you, Tamara.
I wanted to share you also, I got a new grandbaby on the way.
Oh, yay, congratulations.
Okay, love you guys.
Love you too. Thank you. Bye. Teresa, you're next.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, Kathleen. Thank you so much for that message. It was wonderful this morning. I truly was telling Rini that I love being here on Thursday mornings. Once or twice a month, I cannot, but I love being here. Thank you so much for the message. Yes, it's a work in progress for me. I've had a lot of a lot of trauma in my life. And so I've been working on myself, and it's an every day I have to stay focused on me, because I have a lot of people that depend on me. And I'm okay with people now. I'm okay with people not loving me, not liking me. I'm like, okay, well, you're not meant to be in my life for one reason or another. And I've learned that now, and I feel strong about that, but it's an everyday thing, you know. As many of you know, my mom battled cancer for 8 years, so that was very traumatic for the whole family. And what really helped me is the book Fear by Thich Nhat Hanh. And I don't know if anybody has read that, but that really helped me out. Speaking of fear was one of my biggest things, knowing that I was going to lose her, and that we were best friends. We were best friends for so long. And you know, and yes, that history of mom and dad and their parents, how they treated them, I didn't want to pass that on to my boys. I have 2 sons. They're adults now, 31 and 35, but I was always afraid of, like, I don't want to pass things on to them. I want them to be strong men, and so that struggle. But going back to me, I've always known that I have to be that foundation. I have to be that pillar, and not only for them, but for so many people. I didn't really realize how many people were looking up to me, you know, until it was time for me to step up. And I was like, well, why me? Why me? Why me? Why me? And then just working on myself, I realized, like, that's one of the reasons I'm here. I was placed in this position, and so, you know, do it. But anyway, I wanted to share that. I really appreciate your message, and that book, Fear by Thich Nhat Hanh, like, totally, completely changed my point of view, and helped me out so much with that trauma when I was going through that in 2022. And it was weird because I was just recommending that book to someone a couple of days ago, and I didn't know he died in 2022. And that's the year my mom passed away too. And I was like, oh my God, like that's so weird. But fear could really freeze us. I ended up in the hospital twice because of adrenal overload. I just had so much stress and I was just not dealing with it. I wasn't sleeping. I was just doing all the wrong things. But yeah, anyway, this message was wonderful, and it's every day for me, and it has been for the past 5 years. It's a work in progress. I'm a work in progress.
Thank you, Teresa. So true. How women are expected to be the super women, taking care of everyone. So thank you for your share. Binta, you're next.
Oh, thank you so much, Kathleen. Everything you said, I resonated with everything you said. For me, it was all about fear for me, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of speaking, fear of swimming. I still can't swim because I'm terrified of it. So, but what is everything you're talking about, all those emotions that have been passed on to us through ancestors. I did not know that at all before until I started working with a coach almost a year ago now, where she goes deep with me and just digging deep into the well to take out all those emotions. And it's a work in progress. I'm still working on it. We're still working together. But it's really like fascinating to me how sometimes she will ask me something and I will explain, and then I'll start crying because I will remember what happened, you know. And the thing is, now I feel so much compassion for people, compassion for my parents, because they did the best that they could. Even society, the society where I come from, all the rules that are imposed on me and people, it's just the way they were conditioned. It's those, they don't know how to deal with it. And so I feel so much compassion, and I feel so grateful because I'm here where I get to know these things and these tools, incredible tools that I use to really know who I really am. And for me also, yoga is a big part of my life. Just like you said, when you teach your yoga, you let people do their practice. That is how my yoga teachers taught me. I go to yoga and they tell me, this is your practice. If you want to stay in child's pose forever, just stay in child's pose. If you want to lay down in savasana, stay in savasana. It's your practice. And that is what made me love yoga so much that I went into yoga teacher training to learn that. And that's what I teach too. When I teach people, I tell them, do what you want to do. So anyway, I love your subject and my tools. Oh my God, you talk about amethyst. Amethyst is my favorite crystal. I love it so much. I have so many other crystals like over here. That's my go-to. Every time I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is sit down and close my eyes and meditate. I love to practice yoga. I put my mat down and I do my yoga poses and music. I love music, like Suzanne said. I love music, and especially mantra music. Mantra can heal. Mantra is something that really heals the mind. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed this subject. Thank you so much.
It's so amazing. Each of us have our own journey and toolbox that we use to overcome ourselves, our fear and all that. Thank you, Binta. Omeka, you're the last one here to share.
Yeah, last but not least.
Last but not least, for sure.
Yes.
Oh wow, yeah. Feeling everybody. Like, wow, what a topic. Yeah, absolutely. And it brings up a lot. The main thing right now for me is I will say this is how it came out. Loving my mother like I wanted to be loved, and how I have learned to love throughout the years, and forgiving myself and forgiving her. And I still get angry and still just feel whatever I'm feeling. Then I laugh. She laughs. She may understand me or not, and she gives me different looks. So I feel like she's we're communicating, you know. And even though she might not be able to speak whatever she's feeling, and just never seeing my mother cry has just always just been a very interesting uh for me. Um, and it's, sometimes it's in my head, sometimes it's in my heart. Um, unraveling things that I wasn't meant to, and I feel like I came in here to this earth plane, and I was meant for everything that I got, quote unquote, got. And I am here to heal that for generations, for my generations, and knowing who my great, great, great grandmothers were, and just standing on the ground and standing at their graves. And it's on my mother's side, and also on my father's side as well. My ancestors, and in the communities that I'm in, we talk about our ancestors a lot, ancestors and our collective ancestors and your personal. And yeah, just understanding her life. I found her report card for elementary school and high school the other day. And I was like, wow, she kept this. And, it was just interesting to take a little peek into her journey, and how she, quote unquote, turned out. Well, I see people like, you got to study, you got to go to school, you got to learn this, you got to get A's. And, she ended up being a fashion designer and a policewoman. And, her report card didn't say that, So we choose whatever life we choose, and it's okay. Everybody's saying it's okay, that we're becoming. And yeah, that's definitely I say I'm a pray heal warrior goddess becoming, and it's definitely an unfolding. And thank everybody for their insights and their comments and their stories. And yes, yes, loving my mother is loving myself. How we treat other people is how we really feel about ourselves. And what we get and we experience in life is what we think we deserve. So like, I deserve more, and I deserve love, and I deserve money and kindness and opportunities and wonderful experiences. And I don't have to, always say, well, I don't go nowhere, and I can't do this and I can't do this, because it's like, no, let's turn those words around. So yes, 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 yes. So yoga and exercise and crystals, and yeah, clear quartz crystals are, I would say, my favorite. But
Yeah, they're good
I
too.
gave, yeah,
Thank you,
everyone,
Omeka.
yeah,
Yeah,
so it's
you're
beautiful.
always the best. She has the best attitude. So
Yes,
before we close,
absolutely.
we're way past the time. It's 8:08. Kathleen, as we're closing, I'm going to give this back to you to say your last word before we part. But next week is going to be Beth Kaufman. Her topic is the art of flirting and magical romance. I think it's about relationships. So thank you again, everyone, especially Kathleen, for a great presentation. So I'm gonna give it back to you to help close this out for us, Kathleen.
I just want to say thank you so much. Your energy, you're all just so filled with so much beautiful energy, and that's what I love surrounding myself with. I hope I can find a way to be here more. But thank you for your presence. Thank you for sharing and your all personal gifts. Enjoy the journey. It's yours. And remember, it's a practice. So go easy on yourselves.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank you
you
again,
so much.
Kathleen, and everyone, for all your great share and contribution. So have a great day, great week, weekend, and we'll see you all back here next week. Thanks again, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.